Everybody, glad to see you in chapel this morning. So after that week of rain, maybe we're going to get some good weather, and I'm glad to see you in chapel. I get asked a lot, what's the core idea of Lee? And the answer is single phrase: Christ-centered excellence. And our message to students before they even get here is, if you come to Lee, we're going to try to be a place that pushes you to be excellent in whatever your chosen calling is, and while you're being excellent, to constantly center that excellence in that life in Jesus Christ. When I think of people from my generation who are great examples of this principle, I think of this morning's speaker. His name is Mitchell Tolle, and I'm so pleased and honored to have him here on our campus. It's his first time to preach in our chapel, and we've been wanting to have him here for a long time. And his area of calling, his career, his ministry, his life has been art, the visual arts. He's a painter and an artist, and an outstanding one. One who's known throughout this region, throughout the Southeast, and throughout the nation as a wonderful artist who depicts scenes particularly that are from his region of southern Appalachian Mountains, but also many other kinds of art. And he's done this very successfully throughout a lifetime. Mitch Tolle studied at Eastern Kentucky State University and has spent most of his life around the small college town of Berea, Kentucky. Some of you know where Berea is. If those of you who don't, it's about 4 hours straight up I-75, and it's a small college town where Mitch Tolle made his home years ago and opened an art gallery. And from that small town, he has gained international acclaim as a painter. His prints of his original work have sold in thousands and thousands of copies and have made him one of the really significant names in art in this region. But here's the reason we want to hear from him today, not just because he's great at his chosen field, but because through all this time, he has given it all back to God, and he's been very emphatic and very clear and open in his life choices and in his witness that all this belongs to God and that he wants to live a life that lifts up Jesus Christ. So even while he was at the height of his fame as an artist, he took the time to pastor small churches in Eastern Kentucky, and he frequently speaks and gives witness, not just in Christian settings like this, but in all kinds of other settings. He's a wonderful communicator, as you're about to learn. He's old enough to be your grandfather. As a matter of fact, he has a granddaughter in our student body, and he knows some things none of us here this morning know. And I'm glad we're going to learn them in the next 30 minutes. Help me welcome to the Lee University campus, Mitch Tolle. Mitch, come speak to these people. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good morning. Whenever I slow down a little, I'm going to start an organization called Grandparents Anonymous, where I can go into a room and sit down like an alcoholic and say, "Hi, my name is Mitchell. I'm a grandpa." I've been seen wandering the aisles of Toys R Us, wringing my hands saying, "Is this all you have? I've bought all of this stuff." Glad to be here. Before I even visit with you a moment, I'm going to seize this moment and say something to you that I want you to lock away. Nothing will impact the quality of your life. Nothing will impact the quality of your life more than the quality of the counsel that you receive and the completeness with which you do it. If you get bad counsel and execute that perfectly, you will fail miserably. If you get good counsel and ignore it, you will fail miserably. The quality of the counsel that you receive and the completeness with which you obey it will have everything to do with the outcome of your life. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute, but before I do any of that, I just want to say I am a grandpa to the ninth power. My oldest son, Alexander the Great, is here. He's a part of campus choir. Glad you're here, son. And then And then it goes all the way down to my youngest grandson. His name is Sir Isaac James, and all in between, including the redhead Savannah Grace. Savannah, I got to take her to the school the first time when she was 3.5 years old. It was preschool, and it was time for school to start, and I asked her, Dad, can I take her? And he said, sure. And so I got to take her uptown in Berea to the little Methodist church and drop her off, and they met me at my van and explained to me that I needed to be back at 11 o'clock and to pick her up, and I said I would. And right on time, I pulled up out front, and a teacher brought her out, and I opened the door and got her buckled into her seat. She was so little, her legs wouldn't bend down. They just stuck straight out off the seat like that. And I got around on the other side and got myself buckled in and pulled out into traffic. And as I was easing out into traffic, I said, how was school today? She said, school was fine, but Aaron is a snot. And I said, what? And I'm straightening up the car. And she said, you know Aaron? And I said, no. She said, well, he's a snot. And I said, and I'm trying to get straightened up and not get run over. And I said, Savannah, we don't do that. We don't call people names. That's not a nice name. And I looked over, and she was looking out the window, just ignoring me altogether. And so finally, I said, like we do as big people, I said, Savannah Grace. She said, what, Papa? I said, I want you to listen to me. I don't want you to call that little boy that name. That's a bad name. I don't call people names. And she said, I got it, Papa. I'll just put that word over on this side with hell and damn. I about wrecked. 3.5. So I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm glad to be here with Campus Choir, and Abby's in Campus Choir, and today is her birthday, so would you say happy birthday, Abby? So here is the thing. Religionists and scientists argue about everything. They argue about everything, but they agree about one thing, and that is this: that you and I come from this earth. We are just clay. We're just a lump of clay. That's all dressed up, sophisticated, educated, but we're clay just the same. And when I went to the Art Academy of Cincinnati in 1968, one of the first things that happened to me when I went there is a professor took us out into the countryside, and there we climbed out of the van with shovels and burlap sacks. We began to gather dirt from a bank that he pointed out into these burlap sacks. We brought that back into the classroom, sifted it through some screen wire to get rid of the gravel and the sand and the grass and all the impurities, and soon we had left just a pile of very fine silt. It was fine like powdered sugar. If you blew your hand over it, it would just move around. And we began to add water to that at his instruction, and soon we each held in our hand a soft lump of clay. And I remember that he held his clay up like that, and he said, with this lump of clay, you can make anything. Well, you could make a bowl to water your pet or a goblet for a queen's table, but whatever you make from the clay, it has no opinion in the matter. It yields to the thumbprints and the pressure and the imagination of the potter. See, we're like that. We're not the makers of ourselves. When you were born, you were not a Republican or a Democrat. You were a smooth lump of clay waiting to be touched. When you were born, you were not a Christian or a Muslim. You were a smooth lump of clay waiting to be touched. And thumbprint by thumbprint, day after day, moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and teachers and coaches and Sunday school teachers and all of the big people in your life, they touched the clay of your life. And so now you find yourself here at this place, pursuing dreams, going in a direction that perhaps you've imagined. Now, I was made in northeastern Kentucky, where these very same Appalachian Mountains cascade gently into the broad Ohio River Valley. It was the home of my father and his father before him, and even my great-grandpa, Harry Tolle, who only had one arm but could do the work of two men. I was sick when I was born. My bones were soft and would not receive calcium. I could not walk or sit up or stand up until after I was 3 years old. We were born into poverty, me and my older sister, Vicky. We didn't have anything store-bought, nothing. Electricity, running water, a car. We had none of those kinds of things. I don't say that so you'll feel sorry for me. I just want to create that picture. We didn't know we were poor. It's just the way it was. And then add to that my sickness. My father worked at a place called Walmsley's Sawmill. He had actually gone to work there as a 13-year-old boy, abandoned by his father. He went to work at Walmsley's Sawmill. He worked 16 hours a day for $1. That's where he was working when I was born. And every day, at lunch, at the end of the first 8-hour shift, a siren would go off in our town announcing that it was noon. At that moment, my mom would take me in on the couch and press in pillows tight around me so I wouldn't fall over. See, my bones were soft and wouldn't receive calcium, so I couldn't stand up or sit up or walk until after I was 3. And so she would press these pillows in tight so that I wouldn't fall over and face me toward the door so I could see my daddy when he came in. And I would hear him first. He always whistled everywhere he went. So I would hear him whistling in the distance, and soon his big feet up on the loose boards of the front porch, he would stomp around to get rid of the sawdust and turn the cuffs of his blue jeans inside out and run his hands through his wavy hair. And then he would get a hold of the doorknob and shake it and rattle it a long time to make sure he had my attention. Then he would step through the door and scoop me up with giant shovel-like hands and put me in a high chair and sit down in front of me and begin to gobble down his lunch. And then the fun began. He would sing songs. He could play the banjo and the guitar and the harmonica, and he made up songs about me. I was about 12 before I learned every song ever written wasn't about me. And then he told stories about my great-grandpa, Harry Tolle, or my grandpa, Snake Tolle, who was a riverboat gambler and a professional bare-knuckles boxer and a tap dancer in vaudeville, who was married 3 times but not presently living with any of those. And then sometimes he would leave me in the high chair and go find a piece of paper and do drawings for me. One day he found a calendar that showed a picture of Jesus walking on the water, brought that to the table and found a piece of cardboard that used to come in stockings before they started putting them in eggs. And he brought that to the table and sharpened the pencil in the garbage can by the wood cook stove and sit down and began to draw. And his hands swept over this piece of paper. And right before my eyes, an ordinary piece of paper became a thing of beauty because of the lines that he made there. And suddenly Mom came in and said, "Junior, it's time to go." And Dad jumped up and kissed me right here and ran out the door back the 2 miles down the hill to the sawmill. And Mom gathered the pencil and the paper and put everything away. But even before the kiss had dried, I decided that I want to do that. I want to touch things with my hands and make them beautiful. So the dream was born. I don't know, and I don't presume to speak for you, but I sense that in a room full of such youth and energy that surely you bear inside you some dreams. C.S. Lewis said dreams are gifts from God. They're his way of saying there is more. James Allen said dream lofty dreams, for as you dream, so shall you become. And so I dreamed of becoming an artist. In fact, when my bones were well and I went off to the first grade, there was a beautiful blonde-haired lady with bright blue eyes and a long skirt that swirled like this when she turned to write on the chalkboard. And I walked straight to the front of the room and said, "My name is Mitchell. I'm an artist. If you need any pictures, check with me." Now, if that had been a movie, the music fell silent and the cameras came in close just on me and Mrs. McEldowney. And without speaking a word, she motioned with her finger in my face and walked backward toward the massive oak desk that sat in the front of the room, pulled open the drawer, got out a box of brand new colored chalk. I'd never even seen colored chalk, but she opened it and took out a stick and went to the chalkboard on that side of the room and drew a rectangle down low where a little boy could reach it. Put the chalk back in the box and laid it in the chalk tray and said, "Here, when you get your homework done, come here and do colored chalk paintings for Mrs. McEldowney." And so I did. I did drawings for Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter. And when I got my homework done, I loved the first grade. I loved Mrs. McEldowney. I loved life. But then I got promoted to the second grade, and there things went terribly wrong. There was an ancient woman there that, according to the myth, she had originally worked on the ark for Noah. It had been her job to keep the animals in their seat. And, I mean, somebody had to do that. And I always wondered, what did Noah do with the woodpeckers? But that's another subject. But anyway, I want to ask you a question this morning. I'm not looking for an answer except in your mind. Do you believe that the Bible is true? Some people don't. I meet people that don't believe the Bible is true because they have been infected by some philosopher or by some tradition or by some professor or by some idea, but some people say they believe it, but I wonder if they believe it because the Bible says in Psalm chapter 37 verse 23 that the steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord and he delighteth in his ways. And I'm just wondering, can you begin to see how that it's possible, but through sickness, that could be part of your destiny? Because if you weren't sick, your dad wouldn't come home from the sawmill and do the drawing. And if he didn't do the drawing, the dream would not have been planted. And you go to the first grade and there's this wonderful, incredible blonde-haired lady. And I meet her first because if I had met the second grade teacher first, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Because the second grade teacher, I walked straight to the front of the room and said, "I'm an artist. If you need any pictures, check with me." She said, "Sit down." So I dropped my head and my shoulders and slumped my way back to my seat and waited for art, but it never came in the second grade in 1957. I waited 2 weeks for an opportunity to draw, and there wasn't one. Finally, one day in math class, I remember specifically, I turned the sheet over, overcome by the need, I began to draw. And it must have been a light shine from heaven or a halo that appeared above my head. Whatever it was, she saw. She knew something had changed. She came to where I was and yanked me from my seat and whipped me. Now, here's the thing. She was old and weak, and it never hurt. So you know what they say, if you can do the time, go ahead and do the crime. So I drew through the second grade. I drew and she whipped. And she wrote on my report card in red cursive, he draws too much. It was a problem then, but we now have that in our version of the Mitchell Tolle Museum, because in the second grade, I drew too much. It was my destiny. The seed of my destiny had been planted, and the work began. I would go through the town called Vanceburg on my bicycle as an 8-year-old, and they say, there goes the little Tolle boy. He's an artist. I gave my first exhibit on the courthouse lawn at the age of 14, and they came down from the mountains and bought my pictures for $25, and I saved the money to go away to school. Went to the Art Academy of Cincinnati, became an artist for the United States Army, was sent to Thailand in a Vietnam War support zone, and after that I returned to Berea to open a gallery, the Mitchell Tolle Studio and Gallery, for 35 years. I want to tell you one thing quickly, and then I've got 3 things to say to you, and my time will be 3 points to make to illustrate my opening comment, and then my time will be. I went to church camp. I grew up in the Church of God. Mama carried me before I could walk. I didn't know any better. I could have been a Methodist, but as it turned out, I'm Church of God. Mom took me there, and so sure enough, I went to Church of God youth camp at Levi Jackson State Park as a 15-year-old. Now, here's the thing. When I went to church camp as a 15-year-old, I wasn't looking for girls. I probably should have been. I was 15, but I grew up an only brother with 3 sisters, and I was pretty sure girls were a mistake. Now I'm okay with my sisters, but I'm fully persuaded that brother-in-laws are a major error. But anyway, I stepped off that bus with my suitcase in hand, my feet hit the grass, and I was staring into the green eyes of the most beautiful girl you ever saw. Her dark hair fell to the middle of her back. Her skin was smooth and tan and flawless. I just wanted to walk up to her and say something like, I love you. And I knew if I did, she would say back to me something like, well, shrivel up and die. And here's the sad thing, because my bones were weak and because I had this dream of becoming an artist, I was never good at throwing and hitting and running and catching and anything to do with sports. I didn't even play touch football. I didn't want to be touched. I'm an artist. I make beautiful things. Not your average guy, I admit. Add to that the fact that I'm 15. My elbows are big, my knees are big, my nose is big, my ears are big, and I wear black rimmed glasses and white socks and carry a sketch pad. That's not how you win friends and influence people. But that was me at that time in my life. And here is this radiantly beautiful angel that I couldn't take my eyes off. And so instead of playing games, I would watch from a distance. I took my sketch pad and drew the twisted trees at that state park. And I would look over the sketch pad and I would see her walk by. And I never meant for it to happen, but hour by hour, I fell in love. And the last night of youth camp, I don't know what they do now, but in those days, they gave Mr. Youth Camp to the guy that hit the most home runs and had the most muscles. And they gave Miss Youth Camp to the girl that was the most beautiful and the most popular. She was Miss Youth Camp, just like I figured, and I was not Mr. Youth Camp, just like I knew. And so they were giving her the trophy, and everybody was congratulating her, and I stood in the back of the room just to catch one glimpse. I'm talking about destiny. Whenever the scripture says that the steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord, it presumes destiny. You're not just out for a walk. You're not out for a stroll. This is not just simply something on the map, but you are actually going from somewhere to somewhere. And that was and I've sensed that it was a moment of destiny. I mean, how much do you know about destiny when you're 15? I don't know. But they were yelling, the bus is leaving, but I couldn't leave because I needed to and I was just leaning in the door, looking at her and she came to me, just like Miss Piggy would come to Kermit the Frog. She came right where I was, and she walked up to me and she said these very words, would you like for me to put my address in your sketch pad? Now, I know you probably have forgotten that Kermit, he once said to Miss Piggy, would you like to come back to my lily pad and see my etchings? And so they were in art too, and it was a very artistic, romantic moment. And she said, would you like? And I said something that she interpreted, meaning yes, I think I spoke in tongues, but at moments like that, you're thankful that you're Pentecostal and that somebody has the gift of interpretation. And so she understood, and she put her address in that book, and she turned to walk away, and my eyes followed her. And just before she got out of hearing distance, I said, hey. It wasn't really hey, it was more of a Clint Eastwood kind of, I don't have it. I just said, hey. No sense trying to fake that one. And so, but I said, hey, and she stopped and turned back. And the Bible said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And it just rolled up all the way from my toes. And I said, I know that you think that I'm just a boy from Eastern Kentucky that'll never amount to anything, but someday I'll be a great artist, and they'll come from around the world and pay thousands of dollars for my pictures. And I just want to jump to the end of the story and tell you they came from over 80 nations to the Mitchell Tolle studio and gallery, and sometimes paid as much for one of my paintings as you would pay for a new BMW. I'm just simply saying, be careful, listen to me, be careful the words that you speak over your life. James said that there is power and life and death in the tongue. Be careful what you, it's not so much what other people say, it's what you yourself speak over your life. How could I have known that I was speaking a word, a prophetic word of destiny over me and that beautiful girl? She turned to me in that moment and said, let's get married then, and so we did. 46 years ago, we're still together, still in love. She's still beautiful, she's still beautiful. I'm going to say this and move on. I know you're down here, you're surrounded by all these handsome guys, and guys, you're surrounded by all these beautiful girls. Whenever you pick somebody out, pick out somebody that can help you towards your destiny. He said to Adam, he got through making Adam, he didn't say this is good, he said this is very good. After a couple days alone, he said this is not good. The guy cannot even find his car keys. He said, I will make him a suitable helper. You need a helper in order to fulfill your destiny. And God gave me a helper in that beautiful girl, Linda, and she's walked beside me all of these years. Now, let's bring all of this down. I said that it is critical that you get good counsel. So I'm your counselor. God sent me by. I'm not a stumble bum. I'm somewhere on course. I'm charted between here and the end of my life. And God sent this old guy by to tell you some things that you ought to make. Do you know that it says in Psalm chapter 1, blessed is the man. All of you are here pursuing your own version of success. 276 times the Bible says, blessed is the man. If God has a definition for a word, you ought to make that definition your definition. And God's definition of success is blessedness. It does include the trappings of success. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, it says there that God spoke to Abraham, said, get up and go to a place that I'll send you, and I will bless you. And later it said that Abraham was now old in his age and God had blessed him and everything, and then began to list them. So the blessings of God include silver and gold and herds and flocks and cattle and sheep and all the things, and fame. By the way, he was so famous, we know him by his first name, like Madonna and Cher and people like that. So he made him famous, globally famous. So God kept his word where Abraham was concerned, and he blessed him. And so we all want to be blessed, but hear me now, it is possible to get the trappings of success and still not be successful. You can do what Michael Jackson did. You can do what Elvis Presley did. You can do what Anna Nicole Smith did. You can get the silver and gold and the fame and the trappings of success and not lay hold of the favor of God, and your life ends in misery. You see what I'm saying? So I want to give you some good counsel that'll set you quickly on that journey of success. The first thing that I want us to consider for a moment, what if success is not a destination? Most of the books that you read on success treat it like it's a destination, like it's a place on the map. If you cross this bridge, you'll get it. Or if you burn this bridge, you'll get it. Or if you'll look wistfully back at that bridge, or whatever it is, or take these 12 steps. That's what Rick Pitino said. Or develop these 7 habits. That's what Stephen Covey said. Everybody says if you'll take the road less traveled, if you'll go the way that I went and do the things that I did, you'll get the things that I got. That sounds so practical, but what if Success is not a destination on a map. I happen to think that it is not. I think the blessedness of God, you can't find it with GPS coordinates. It's much more like goodness and mercy. Didn't David say in the 23rd Psalm, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me? What if success is on the move looking for people rather than you on the move looking for success? Actually, didn't he say in the book of Deuteronomy, he said, if you will obey me and do what I say, these blessings shall come upon you like a gentle rain and overtake you like a freight train. That's my paraphrased version of what that says. But I find success on the move, looking for people getting things right. Anybody in the room looking for success, would you be honest? Anybody? You're not here to get information and knowledge. You're here to find your own version of success. You didn't come here just for this. I know that you're engaged in a variety of things, but you came here because you're pursuing success. Well, I want you to know that there are 3 things success will not tolerate. If you mess those up, there'll be no sack of gold waiting for you at the end of the rainbow. Those 3 things. I'm going to say them quickly. I'm done. Number 1, faithlessness. There is no reward for the faithless. Without faith, it is not hard, difficult, it is impossible to please God. And those that come to him must believe that he is and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So you begin, and God has given every man a measure of faith. You don't have to worry whether or not you ever got faith. You got it, God gave it to you, you've got it. And God is not the kind of God that would give you an insufficient measure of faith that would leave you empty and destitute in the end. God gave you a sufficient measure of faith. However, faith sometimes fails. Jesus said to Peter, I've prayed for you that your faith would not fail, and it is imperative that we're undergirding and stimulating and always activating and walking in our faith. Here's the interesting thing. Faith measures the reward. Half-hearted faith gets half-hearted result. You and I live in a nation called America. One of the things that's wrong in America today is everybody's given up on the future. All the talking heads, all of the politicians, all of the commentators on television, they're all collectively working together, and they are saying to you that America's best days are behind us. What we need is some leadership that actually can believe that tomorrow can be better than yesterday. After all, didn't Jesus say, according to your faith, be it unto you? When I come here and see you, I feel so good about tomorrow, right? But you've got to believe that. It doesn't matter what I believe, what I see, what I think. It matters what you believe. Success has a reward for those who are full of faith. One thing to say about faith, and I'll run past it here. Faith is essential. Faith is foundational. Faith is first. Faith precedes all of those other kinds of things like talent, intellect, a cell phone. Faith comes before a cell phone. No, we don't think it does. You can be successful without a cell phone, but you can't be successful without faith. Success has so we need to know the difference between what's nice and what's necessary. Faith is necessary. But here's the thing that I want to tell you about faith. It's got to be free of doubt and fear. Doubt and fear oppose faith violently and tend to displace it altogether. It's critical that your faith is pure, like a 55-gallon drum of paint. White paint, you take that. I could have all of you walk by a 55-gallon drum of white paint and ask you what color it is, and you would all say collectively, it's white. And right before your eyes, I could take a teaspoon of red and put in there, just a teaspoon, and blend it in with one of those big drill blenders until it was all blended, and ask you to all come by again and say what color it is. And each of you might stumble a little and say, well, it looks white, but your hesitation would be that you know it's not white. They call it light pink to the 37th power, but don't call it white. See, that's what happens to faith. When faith becomes polluted with doubt and fear, call it what you want to, but don't call it faith. You believe in God, you believe in his word, you believe in his promises, you believe in yourself, you believe in the timing of God to release you into the earth now. You believe that Slade Hollow was part of your destiny, that the sawmill was part of your destiny, that the drawings on the cardboard, the girl at youth camp, the time drawing pictures of military officers in Thailand, that all of that was part of your destiny because God is not a stumble bum. You believe it. The second thing that success will not tolerate is heartlessness. Some people believe that they were meant for greatness, but they just don't have the heart to get out of bed in the morning. Desire, burning desire. You have to actually want something. God himself talks about how that he will satisfy your desires. He said, they that hunger and thirst shall be filled. God is looking for people that want something bad enough to go after it. Whenever you want success, when you want the blessings of God the way that you want air when you're at the bottom of the swimming pool, when you find yourself fighting from the bottom to get back to the top, then you're actually in a place to receive something worthwhile from God. God is not interested in dreaming. Listen, desire is not a wish. Desire is not a passing fancy. Desire is not a matter of preference, as in I would like to drive a Cadillac instead of a Prius. It's not that. Desire wants one thing desperately. David said, one thing have I desired of the Lord. Apostle Paul said, forgetting that which is behind, I press toward. He said, this one thing I do. Become a person of one thing. Narrow the focus and desire it desperately and see if your Father doesn't respond. The third thing that success will not tolerate is visionless ness. See, here's what concerns me as I look across America, and sometimes I look into the eyes of our young people and I see it as well, and that is the absence of vision. The wise guy Solomon said, where there is no vision, the people rot slowly. That's what perish means, or are consumed violently. You look up the word perish, it has no good definition. You don't want to perish. The antidote for a perishing life, the antidote for the aimless, the antidote for the mediocre, the antidote for the people who are rowing all night, toiling and rowing, the antidote is always vision. Habakkuk the prophet said, write the vision, make it plain upon the tables that he may run that readeth it. I'll end here. My grandson, Alexander the Great, came into my life when I needed him most. My baby girl, Misty, had just gone away to Juilliard to get her master's degree in music, and suddenly I have this void in my life, and right on cue, God sends this little bundle of joy. I would sit at my drawing table and paint and hold this guy right here. For hours on end, I would just hold him and paint, and every now and then, I would say to his mama, change him. You can only paint with that under your nose for so long. He grew up right here. Then one day, his father got a promotion. They moved away. They moved to Pennsylvania. He wished upon a star that he wouldn't have to go. The phone rang in my studio with a voice on the end said, hi, Papa. This is Alex from Pennsylvania. I said, what's up, buddy? He said, Papa, I guess the wishing star don't work. We cried. We missed each other. His dad got another promotion, moved to Wisconsin. Another one moved to northern Wisconsin. Suddenly everything changed, and one day I picked him up in Indiana, of all places, met my daughter in a parking lot, and I picked this guy up. She pulls me off the side and said, Daddy, I need some help with Alex. Anything. What do you need me to do? She said, well, they want to hold him back. Want to hold him back from what? You know. No, I don't know. They want to hold him back. He almost didn't get through the 4th grade. They want to hold. What do you mean they want? He's a genius. The boy's a genius. Well, he may be, but his grades don't show it. They want to hold him back. And I said, well, give us the summer. And they said, well, if he don't get it together next year in the 5th grade, we're going to hold him back. He's falling behind. So she brought him to me, and my wife and I prayed about it. And he arrived in our home, and he laid on the pallet beside my bed and on the floor. And he would reach up in the night after the lights were out and the prayers were said, and his hand would bang against the bed. And I would reach and hold his little hand until finally he would fall asleep, and the hand would drop into the middle of his chest. When he was asleep, I turned to Linda and said, they're trying to hold him back. We make vision out to be a complicated thing. I'll tell you what vision is. 1 year, 1 grade. How long do you think my grandson ought to spend in the 5th grade? We're not talking about Jethro Bodine here. This is my grandson. 1 year, 1 grade. That's vision. Don't make vision complicated. Make it something that you can sink your teeth in and get a hold of. 1 year, 1 grade. My grandson. He will not be held back in the 5th grade. We began to dream. We began to work on it. I began to change his name and call him a star student and a math maniac. Did everything that I could to bring him into the place where he began to believe and conceive that perhaps it was possible for him to do more than he was already doing. At the end of the summer, drove back to the parking lot in Indiana to hand him off to his mom, unknown to her. I had ordered a t-shirt from a gift shop in Alaska. We stood together giving hugs, and I got that out of the bag and pulled that down over his head, and it had a whale's tail and the words Alaska. That guy had always wanted to go to Alaska. And I said to Alex, if you will get your grades up, I'll take you to Alaska. Mama and I will take you to Alaska next summer. We'll take an Alaskan cruise. We'll see whales and eagles and brown bears. He rubbed his belly. He said, okay, Papa. I went to his mom. I said, I need some help here. Whenever he gets home, I want him to wear this to school tomorrow. She said, okay. I want him to wear it. I said, every day for the first 30 days. Yeah, I know. Habakkuk said, write the vision, make it plain so a 9-year-old can read it. He went to school for 2 weeks and nobody noticed the shirt. 2 weeks, nobody noticed. At the end of the second week, the teacher called him down front and said, son, what's the shirt? He said, that must be your favorite shirt. He said, yes, sir. He said, why? He's 700 miles from me. He rubbed his little belly. He said, well, you see, I'm getting my grades up. And my papa said, when I get my grades up, he's taking me to Alaska. I see, the teacher said. With that, he went back to his seat. The teacher called him up in the afternoon and said, what do your grades have to be in order to go to Alaska? He said, they got to be all A's and B's. He said, would you give your papa a message for me? Yes, sir. You tell your papa if you make all A's and B's and 1 C that I'll fix it. Write the vision, make it plain so that a teacher that I never met can run. Now I've got Alex running and his mom's washing his shirt and I got the teacher running. He goes into the cafeteria line. They see the shirt. Hey, what's the shirt? I'm getting my grades up. The students, what's the shirt? Before too long, down at the front office, hey, I want to come by and see the little boy that's going to Alaska. They came over from the Board of Education, said, I want to see the guy that's wearing the shirt that's going to Alaska. The 6 weeks ended, the phone rang in the studio. Papa, this is Alex. What's up, buddy? Papa, we got our report card today. I said, son, how are we doing? He said, Papa, we are on our way to Alaska. God is not playing games with you. We stood together on the edge of Lake Chilkoot with 9 black bears and 53 eagles in the trees behind us. Gave the camera to a tourist and said, take our picture. He's wearing the whale tail shirt. While she's trying to figure out how to use my camera, I feel a tug on my sweatshirt. And he looked at me and said, Papa, you don't have to do this anymore. I've got this forever in my heart. I can make it from here. And he's here among you now, pursuing the dream that was planted. And by the way, he didn't just simply made it. He soared through the 5th grade and how. And I'm just simply saying to you, if you will position yourself so the success that comes from the hand of God will flow upon you, you'll glance back at my age and see how surely nothing less than the hand of God was directing every step as you move from here to your destiny. At this point, I would usually say sometime when you're on the road, stop by the Mitchell Tolle studio and gallery and buy something very expensive. But I'm talking to students. And I sold my gallery, and now I'm pursuing my own dream. So I will say that you will be in my prayers, and if we never meet again, I'll see you on Streets of Gold. God bless you.